Hello everybody, Belone from MNPC Tech along with Jacques, and we are looking at the brand new Be Quiet Dark Base 700. Already, I really like this case. It's very simple yet stylish, classy looking. What do you think, Jacques?
Well, from a pure aesthetic view, it is amazing, especially on the inside. It's just so clean and so well thought out.
All right, Jacques, why don't you turn it on since we've got a system installed in it already. Very discreet, simple RGB lighting in the front.
Yeah, so one of the nice things we have is not only the front ventilation that's on the side, and the front bezel here is just 100% flat, which is quite striking because it's all brushed. The downside is that we just have a fingerprint magnet for it. So it is great to look at, not so great to touch all of the time. We do have full RGB controls of the exterior lighting on the top if we don't want it to be synchronized with our motherboard, as well as USB 3, headphone, and mic reset button, changing our RGB lights, and 3.0, as well as a fan controller. If we rotate around to the side, we'll see that same glass panel that we're accustomed to seeing many places nowadays, where we're held in by the 4 thumb screws. This one is nice because it is reversible. You'll notice that the bevel on the top edge and bottom edge is identical, and that's so we can flip it to the other side if need be. And then once we sneak our way around to the back, here is basically things being mostly status quo, except for the fact that you'll notice that we have built-in vertical GPU support right out of the box. And then our last side is our plain Jane side. And that's okay, because this is, after all, a Be Quiet case. It is designed to not make the noise. It's not designed to be hyper flashy. So taking a tour of our IOs here, we have 2 USB 3.0s. We have a RGB color switch, a reset switch, which also doubles as our hard drive activity light, our power switch, headphone and microphone jacks, a USB 3.1 C port, and then one of the more interesting features to me is a built-in fan switch where we can override fan profiles, or we can have them automatically controlled by the motherboard. Taking off the front bezel here, we're going to see something fairly interesting that I've never seen in another case before, and that's actually a quick disconnect for the RGB lighting, as well as soundproofing on the front panel. Another nice touch is, of course, our removable dust filter, and this guy actually clips in with a decent amount of force and is full size. Here at the bottom we can see one of our included Be Quiet 140 millimeter fans. And our front filter actually is fairly rigid, so that makes me confident in its kind of performance over time. Even putting a lot of strength into this, it just has a very little amount of wiggle. In order to remove our bottom filter, we also have to remove this front bezel, which is nice because we're usually going to be cleaning both of these filters at the same time. And it gets pulled out just right next to where the RGBs connect in. Moving our way across the top of the case, we see in the back quarter we have these aggressive fin design for ventilation, as well as the top section in the very back for exhaust from our top mounted radiators. We have our second Be Quiet fan that is 140 millimeters included, and we can either place that or a 120 millimeter fan there. Moving on down, we have 2 vertical PCI slots designed for our graphics card, or 7 standard slots. On our power supply, this is where I come in with my first issue with the case. I would have loved to have seen today's standard of having a removable bracket in the nice higher end case so that I can slide my power supply in from the back. What we do have, however, is these adjustable screw holes. So in case your power supply needs to shift very slightly one way or another, this will accommodate that a little bit better. Moving over to our tempered glass panel, it is held in by the standard 4 thumb screws and rubber grommets around those. And we're going to touch base here again on the design of this panel, which is a nice blackout painting on the inside, so it has a very clean look, and we're hiding all of the parts of the case that we do not want to see, as well as the double beveled edges. And again, this case is designed so we can pull out that motherboard tray, invert it, and this tempered glass side could go on the other side of the case. So you'll notice at the bottom here, we have this massive wall, and this entire wall is removable, as well as 4 individual plates above it, and they just snap in and out. And it makes it look for a very nice, clean aesthetic, and still allows you that functionality of being able to build the system with ease. We have another discrete mounting bracket here at the top. This will allow us to mount either top radiator or fans up to 360 or up to 340 millimeter fans. Directly below that, we'll see even more options for customization. We have the 5 back panels here. These can either be snapped out and a hard drive cage placed in horizontally, or we could snap them out and put in a reservoir for our water cooling system. Popping this bracket out, we're going to mount one of our horizontal mounts into here. And this will slide in from the back side of the case and allow us to mount another 3¼ inch drive bay. Snapping these guys back into place, while difficult, isn't impossible, and I don't mind the difficultness because how often are we actually going to be doing this except for during our build? I didn't lie, it was difficult. And it's backwards.
It's be quiet, not be confused.
As we follow our front bezel all the way down, we'll see that the material nicely wraps all the way around the bottom of the front foot. This is still the same brushed aluminum as the bezel on the top this way. We can also see that we have amply large rubberized feeding, and we can take off this entire front foot by screw if need be for modding. As we go on, we see our dust filter, which was removable when we had the front bezel off, and our rear feet. On the back here, we're going to see hard drive mounts for 3 SSDs and a fairly fancy fan controller and RGB controller. So this fan controller will both take the speeds from the motherboard with being able to be overwritten, as well as RGB coming in from the motherboard to control the RGB lights that are built into this case. Again, these settings can always be overwritten by the front button. We're going to see a plethora of standoffs all the way around for cable management, which is something very nice to see. The one downside here, or upside, depending on how you want to look at it, is our rubber grommets. Our rubber grommets, unlike typical grommets, are cut on the ends rather than down the center. So that means when you have a cable going through it, you're taking out the entire flap from being in line. The plus side is when you don't have something going through it, it is a very clean and sleek look. These brackets that we're going to see on the far left here are what we would remove to put in those extra hard drive cages. They would protrude into the center of the system, but otherwise on the flip side of these is the 5 black plates that we saw. Even though in this build it wasn't needed, we have more than ample space here at about 1.5 inches of a gap, which will allow us plenty of cabling management to get up to our hard drives above or routing up to our front radiators. You could potentially even run a water cooling loop through here.
Okay, Jacques, final thoughts. But before we get into final thoughts, how many times have I gone around cleaning the fingerprints off the exterior tonight?
It has to be at least half a dozen. And that's both good and bad, as we were talking about. That means that the case is beautiful enough that you care to clean the fingerprints off of it. The downside is that means this guy is a fingerprint magnet. So anytime that we tried to articulate the case, we basically had to go back and wipe it down afterwards. So if it's going to be a showpiece in your house and you're not utilizing it very often, it's going to be perfect. But if you're one of the people who wants to be in your system, tinkering around, swapping pieces out from now and then, this is not something of a finish that I would recommend for you unless you're going to be willing to clean it every time you use it. And same thing with the tempered glass panel. It's going to be right up there, as in it's going to be fingerprint and dust magnets. That being said, the build quality on the system is fantastic. Everything feels rock solid. The case is heavy enough to be tossed, and I don't feel like it's going to shatter. The part I dislike is the price point. So we're sitting at $179 for this case, and while it is a beautiful case, I think that's a little bit steep, but that's also our entry point. I think we might see that come down over time. The interior, where we have the flat panel design throughout it, I think is very aesthetically pleasing. It allows it to have this minimalist look, especially with the flat black motherboard that we have in here at the moment. The addition to having RGB lighting that is linked throughout the front, plus that RGB quick disconnect in the front, which is the first I've ever seen.
Me too.
Is kind of a very nice touch. As far as cable management goes and overall system build, I think it's right up there with exactly what I'm looking for in features, especially when we're talking about water cooling. We're not going to be going nuts in this case with water cooling because we have all of these panels in place and we like that clean, straight look, but there's enough flexibility to putting in that 360 in the front or 360 in the top to basically let our hearts go crazy.
I put the system in it and the overall experience was nice. There wasn't any gripes or frustrations, plenty of space for tucking wires away. And if you look at it right here, I mean, I probably put about an hour and a half into doing the cabling with the system install, and it looks great. It's super clean, ready to go. How many other cases can I say that about right now? Although I have to agree with Jacques about the price of $179.99. It is a bit rich, I think, even though you're getting all these features in it, only because the market right now is really battling at that, say $80 to $110 price point for mid-towers. But in Be Quiet's defense, they've got some features here that other cases don't have, like that socketed RGB front bezel. I thought that was really slick, and how you can mount the 3.5-inch drives on the wall alongside the motherboard. And I understand that Be Quiet has a serious enthusiast following, and it is growing. So it is, I guess you could say Be Quiet is like the bespoke case on the market right now. And I know that they're doing very well, and maybe we'll see a case in a lower price bracket come out from Be Quiet within the next year. But I'm sold. I like the case. It's nice. It looks great.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And maybe we will see one come out at a slightly lower price point that doesn't have a reversible motherboard tray. And to me, I would gladly lose that functionality just to have, $40 less price point. But as it stands, it's a fantastic case. If money's not an object or something you think about, this is a case that you can't go wrong with, from my point of view.
I agree. So thanks everybody, and thank you, Jacques, for coming back and doing another case review. It is fun to go back and forth with you on these products. And if this is the first time you've watched a video from MNPC Tech, please subscribe. We're going to have many more case reviews and maybe some other different product reviews. And we're also looking at the opportunity of doing 4K live streaming at some point down the road. Right, Jacques?
As soon as we get into the new studio, I think we should be able to have exciting content for you guys, as well as a little bit up in content. So if there's something specific that you're interested in seeing, please comment down below, and we'll do our best to make that content that you guys desire.